It's going to be an interesting string of two matchups for the Cleveland Browns in these next 2 weeks, regardless of what their playoff hopes are. They're going to play two teams that are very similar in some stats and in some makeups, but could not be further apart from the result. These are two teams who have logos that are both birds, two teams with very dynamic, very athletic, dual threat quarterbacks, and two teams that are exceptional in DVOA rushing the ball. Yes, the Arizona Cardinals are this week. The Baltimore Ravens are the next week for the Cleveland Browns, but this week it's the this week it's the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Kyler Murray, Heisman Trophy winner, playing Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner, right before Baker Mayfield gets a rematch with Lamar Jackson, Heisman Trophy winner, presumptive MVP. So it's going to be an interesting string of 2 weeks for the Browns. It's going to be an interesting string of 2 weeks for Freddie Kitchens. How will the beginning of the end of this roller coaster ride that we have been on called the 2019 season go? Well, let's find out. All right, guys, so we're going to do what we always do here and break this thing down into key matchups and storylines. And the first one is going to be the Cardinals run game versus the Browns non-existent run defense. Arizona is second ranked in DVOA run offense, second to Lamar Jackson. They run some similar concepts, albeit not as effectively, and they don't commit to it as much. And, at this point in their careers, Kyler Murray is not where Lamar Jackson is as a dynamic runner, or at least I don't think Cliff Kingsbury really takes the leash off of Kyler Murray in the way that I think should be. Because if you watch Kyler Murray, he does look very limited, but that's another subject for another day. But the Arizona Cardinals do have Kenyon Drake and David Johnson, two very, very good running backs. Chase Edmonds, also their very solid running back. Those are three running backs. Those are three dangerous running backs. And then they have Kyler Murray on top of that. This should be a dominant run offense. And, in some stats, it does indicate that. But, if you look at the yards for these guys, I don't think a single one of them have over 500 yards in the season. Kyler Murray is the leading rusher with, I think, 480 something. So while they are very good at running the ball, it really shows that they're not really committing to it as much as they should. So the Cardinals' run offense should be what they use to try to beat the Browns. That is going to be their number one weapon, because this Browns run defense, the last 3 weeks since Myles Garrett slammed that helmet on Mason Rudolph's head, has not been good, has been awful. What I saw last week against the Bengals was one of the worst run defense attempts I think I've seen in like 5 years. It's been a while since I've seen a Browns team give up the edge as easily and as willingly as they did. Again, Joe Mixon really wasn't even having to break tackles to get to the second level. Just the defensive line just wasn't getting there, wasn't doing anything at all last week. So if that's the case, the Browns are going to be in for a long day unless Cliff Kingsbury coaches his way out of that advantage, which I don't think he's that incompetent to do that. And, the Browns have had an issue with some certain types of running quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota had a big day. Brandon Allen, Russell Wilson, Ryan Fitzpatrick's. These guys who are scramblers have big days. But ironically, the people you would kind of associate the most with running, the dual threat guys, the true dual threat guys, and the most dynamic runners, actually, those are the guys the Browns have beat. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, two of the most dangerous runners in the NFL. And I think that lines up well with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is not a scrambler as much as he is kind of tuned to be a dual threat guy. And in the way I categorize it, I think a scrambler is somebody who breaks from the pocket and runs from there. Josh Allen's a bit of a scrambler, but they do send him on enough design runs to where he is more of a dual threat. And a dual threat quarterback is a quarterback who he either does one or the other, but he normally doesn't mix. Like, you don't normally see Lamar Jackson scrambling like you saw Michael Vick do. Most of Lamar Jackson's damage is when he just is on a straight run attempt. So that's why I think it's better to categorize him as dual threat because it better describes their game. But yeah, Kyler Murray is a dual threat more than he is a scrambler. And I do think that bodes better for the Browns as they just seem to play better against those guys than they do against scramblers. I mean, again, Brandon Allen had a big day against the Browns. Duck Hodges is a scrambler. He had a good game against the Browns and was able to scoot for some first downs. These are the issues that I have seen with the Browns with these types of quarterbacks, and I don't think they're going to end anytime soon this season. But speaking of the quarterback, man, the next question I have is Kyler Murray's ups and downs versus a suspect defensive line, but also, Kyler Murray has a suspect offensive line, and what I think is a good secondary. Kyler Murray at the beginning of the season, I thought was really impressive. I thought was having a quietly one of the greatest, better rookie years that some quarterbacks have had, on par to what Baker Mayfield's rookie year was. But this team, the Cardinals, have been on a losing streak. They have had a very tough schedule. They have lost a lot of games in a row, and it's starting to take its effect on Kyler Murray. Just look at his highlights and I'll show them, during the Pittsburgh game. Just a lot of hesitation, a lot of trying to bounce things outside and trying to make too much happen, and it's forcing mistakes. Just a lot of bad quarterback play from Kyler Murray. It's been up and down for him, and he looks like a player who's being coached out of his instincts, and I hope that's not the case. But you'll see it a lot where he has the instinct to do something, but then he remembers he was coached to do something else, and he just looks hesitant. He doesn't look as confident in himself as he did earlier in the season. He's not making the same throws, the same caliber of decisions. It has really taken a little bit of a turn in the last few weeks, especially in that game against Pittsburgh. And that's not to say that it might have just been one game because, hey, Pittsburgh is one of the best defenses in the NFL, a top 5 defense in the league this year. But it was alarming to see how Kyler Murray was failing because he was able to move the ball and he was able to score some points. But in some key moments, he really just made some bad decisions, hesitated when he shouldn't have. And I think the perfect play to show this is this play right here. This is going to be an interception in the end zone. But you see here, he has the defender flat foot with Larry Fitzgerald right there on his shoulder. So he could run this thing and get that 2 yards for that first down at the very least, probably score because he's Kyler Murray, but instead he picks his arm up and he throws this ball in a pile of Steelers jerseys and it gets picked off by TJ Watt. Just a bad decision there. Just not trusting his gut, just not going with his instincts. And, I feel like Kyler Murray in Oklahoma would have tucked that thing down and ran that ball, got into the end zone. But he's just not playing with that same confidence and that same mojo that I saw him with at Oklahoma and even at the beginning of the season here in Arizona. The next storyline, I think, is going to be this Browns potentially hobbled offensive line. J.C. Tretter might not play. And if J.C. Tretter, the center for the Cleveland Browns, does not play, I don't know if the Browns win this game. J.C. Tretter is the most reliable offensive lineman that the Browns have, and he's one of 2 reliable offensive linemen that the Browns have. And losing him is a monumental blow to that offensive line if he cannot play this week. Now, I think he will, but if he does not play, that is a terrible sign because the Browns don't have anybody to replace him. That would mean probably putting Eric Kush in there at center. He might be able to do a good job, but, J.C. Tretter, he's been that guy for Baker Mayfield since his rookie year. J.C. Tretter has just been one of the more solid parts of this offensive line that has not been solid for most of this season. And then also you have to keep in mind that the Cardinals pass rush is not a joke. Chandler Jones is a dominant edge rusher who will get into the backfield if Greg Robinson or if Chris Hubbard decides to play. Now, hopefully they put in Kendall Lamb. I like what he did last week more than I like anything Chris Hubbard has done in the last 3 games. So hopefully that's the change that's made. But Greg Robinson and the Chandler Jones matchup should be interesting. Chandler Jones, athletic guy. Greg Robinson, kind of a big, slow, but athletic for his size guy. I can see Greg having problems with that, but hopefully, his sparring with Myles Garrett in the offseason has put him in a better position to handle those athletic speed rushers. But, with Greg Robinson, you never know because he's just not consistent. The next story and the next key for this game is going to be Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, and Jarvis Landry. For the Cleveland Browns, those are the 3 names that you have to see dominate the stat sheet in order for the Browns to win this game. And in order for the Browns to honestly win out, these are the 3 names that are going to have to dominate the stat sheet. Nick Chubb is great. Kareem Hunt is great. Odell and Jarvis have to be a huge part of what you do here, especially Odell. Odell really does have to have another very, very good game. I feel like he's due for one. I feel like this week he'll have one. I feel like also Jarvis will too. And also it's the offense just moves better when you have your quarterback playing with confidence. Nick Chubb's great. Kareem Hunt is great. I've said it before. But the offense is just more dangerous. It can put up more points when you have your quarterback playing with confidence. And how do you do that? You get the ball in the hands of 18 and 30. Those 2 have to be factors on the stat sheet. And if they are, obviously Baker Mayfield will come with that. So that is why it's important. Not to say that the run game is not important. It is. But the offense just moves better when this pass game is going. That's when you can beat the tougher opponents. We can beat the easier guys with Nick Chubb, yes. But that's kind of a crutch. The Browns are going to have to hit a second gear eventually, either next year or at the end of this season. And in order to do that, the passing game has to get right. We can't avoid it. It has to get right. This is an opportunity to start to get that thing pushing in the right direction if you're the Cleveland Browns. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the inactives. Again, I touched on Chris Hubbard. He's questionable for the game. Honestly, I hope he doesn't play. Kendall Lamb has played better than him, but, I don't know if he's going to play. He seems pretty doubtful, to be honest. Eric Murray, Olivier Vernon. I don't know what's going on with Olivier Vernon. Came back in Pittsburgh, played 14 snaps, disappeared. I don't know what's going on with Olivier Vernon, but I'm just going to tell everybody right now, come March, he's not going to be on the Browns roster anymore. I think this is going to be a one and done with Olivier Vernon. Getting paid $15 million for next year. They can get out of that contract for virtually nothing in March. So that's going to happen. J.C. Treader, who just signed a new contract, the center for the Browns, is questionable. I do think he's going to play. J.C. has played through a ton of injuries in his career. An offensive lineman are beasts like that. They played through a ton of injuries. So I do think JC is going to play. Now for the Cardinals, you got Justin Pugh. He's probably going to play. Andy Isabella going to play. Kevin Peterson and Joe Walker. I don't know how important they are, but they're probably going to be active. So all in all, it looks like a pretty healthy game for the players they have available. If you're the Cleveland Browns, maybe you'll see more out of David Njoku in his second week back playing football. But yeah, it seems to be a pretty healthy game for both sides. All right, so the biggest problem and weakness for each team, the biggest weakness for the Arizona Cardinals and what they're going to have to kind of cover up in this game is going to be their secondary. Patrick Peterson has not been Patrick Peterson the entire season. This Cardinals secondary is, I think, the 5th worst in DVOA. In the NFL, they have been bad. They have gotten torched. Duck Hodges has done it with Deontay Johnson. They just have not had a good go of it. And this secondary for the Arizona Cardinals has been beat up. But that's not the only weakness in this game. For the Browns, it's going to be that run defense. Again, against the Cincinnati Bengals, might have been one of the worst run-stopping jobs I have seen in a very, very long time. It had me wondering what happened to Danny Shelton and Phil Taylor. And that's not a good sign. So for the Cleveland Browns to have any hope in this game, they're going to have to get better play from that defensive line because it already cost them the game in Pittsburgh. It almost cost them the game in Cincinnati. Luckily, Cincinnati just, I don't want to be rude, but they're just not that good. So they didn't win. Um, but, the Cardinals aren't that bad. They can win this game if the Browns' defensive line does not get any push, especially with a guy like Kyler Murray. So I really hope that the Browns' defensive line shows up this week. But I also have no reason to believe that will be the case because they just haven't showed up. And they're still down Olivier Vernon, who I don't even know how big of a difference he's going to make, to be honest. All right, so I put together win criteria for each team. This is just kind of a suggestion of things that each team will probably have to do in order to win. And for the Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to say use Kyler Murray and David Johnson to take advantage of the Browns' weak edges. The Browns have done a terrible job stopping the run throughout the season, only being able to stop the run against the league's two best run teams, ironically, but against everybody else, they have been awful. And they don't have Myles Garrett like they did against the league's two best run teams. So that will not be there to help them against Cardinals. If I'm the Cardinals, run the ball, get the edge. The Browns will give them it. And you'll be able to get a score up early on the Cleveland Browns. Also for the Cardinals, let Kyler be Kyler. Let him play with his instincts. Let him go with his guts. Let him be the playmaker that he is. I see him kind of slowing down and trying to make decisions for the system that he's in, and instead of playing football. And it really scares me because it reminds me of what Kyler Murray looked like at Texas A&M, which was awful. So I hope Cliff Kingsbury sees that and changes that because that will not be good for Kyler Murray's future. I like the Kyler Murray that just makes plays and goes with his guts. I don't like this version of Kyler Murray that looks like he's thinking way too much and trying to do way too much at a time. Chandler Jones also needs to have a big day. And if you're the Cardinals, get Charles Clay involved. The Browns have not stopped a decent tight end all season. Have no reason to believe they will do it this week. So if you're the Cardinals, that is what you're going to want to do to win. For the Cleveland Browns, Jarvis Landry and Odell need more touches than Chubb and Hunt. I know this is going to be a controversial one, but for the Browns to win this game, I think it's going to be important that Jarvis and Odell and Hunt in the pass game get involved and get this ball moving. Now, if the Browns can get an early lead, 3 scores, then you're going to see Chubb in there to kind of finish it out. But for the Browns, they really need to get this pass game going. That is where the weakness is for the Cardinals. That is the easy way to beat them. That is how every other team has beaten them. If you look at teams that are run heavy like the 49ers have struggled to beat the Cardinals twice, and they're much better than the Cleveland Browns. So if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're not going to beat the Cardinals just strolling in there thinking you're going to run the ball on them. You got to be able to get the ball to Jarvis and Odell this week. You're also going to need Baker to play a clean game, no turnovers. He seems like he's dipping back into that bag, having a 2-turnover day against the Bengals after he had been pretty good without the turnovers. So hopefully that was just one game and not a trend for Baker Mayfield. And then Sheldon Richardson needs to have a good game. Somebody on that defensive line, I don't care who, needs to step up and become a good player and become a factor because it's been non-factors on that defensive line since Myles Garrett's been hurt. And the last thing is execute. When you get turnovers, get points. The Browns got turnovers in Pittsburgh, did not get points. Browns got turnovers minus the pick 6. They got turnovers in Cincinnati, did not get points. I am tired of seeing this team get turnovers or get in the scoring range and just not get points, they have to execute. They have to finish those opportunities because it's legit cost them 4 or 5 games. Like, this team would be in a completely different place if they just executed those little things and got those little things right. And that is a difference, honestly, between a playoff team and a team that is hoping to make the wild card. So for the Cleveland Browns, it is clear what they have to do. They have to execute. They have to play a clean game. They can't get jet lagged. They can't play from behind. Now, as for my prediction for this game, I think it's going to depend on a couple things. If JC Treader does not play, the Browns will probably lose this game 21-17. I don't think they're going to be able to get the blocking on the offensive line consistently enough to be able to do anything in the pass game. I think the run game will be slowed down significantly. I think the Browns will have a long flight back home. Now, if JC Treader does play, I think the Browns are going to win 24-21. I think they're going to be able to score some extra points. I think Odell's probably going to get in the end zone maybe twice this week. And I think the Browns are going to bring in this one home. But I don't think it's going to be breezy. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think this is going to be a struggle. I think this is going to be kind of sloppy, to be honest with you. That's just my gut feeling on the game. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. What do you think the score is going to be for this game? And what do you think is going to be the most important story coming out of it? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching this preview. Have a great day and have a good night.